Hi, Messiah. It's Pastor Jim coming to you from my backyard. Right now, we can't really go into any places, but we can go outside, and so that's what I'm doing today. So, with online church and what this has all meant and how we can try to bring the church into your homes, I've thought a lot about this. In fact, a bunch of years ago, I met a good friend of mine. She was a minister at a large church, and she told me that her church had been doing e-church for a few years, and in fact, their e-church had 80% of their overall attendance was through e-church, and I couldn't believe it. And in fact, I even kind of questioned like whether or not that was legitimate church or something like that. And she started to work on her dissertation through everything. And through our friendship, I learned more and more about how they try to connect with people. When I got to Messiah, it was just a few months ago that our team started to work together to talk about how we can make sure that we're being good digital disciple makers, how we can digitally connect with people through social media, how we can make sure we get our messages out there. And I think that's been a real blessing. We had no idea that something like this would happen, but we had the infrastructure in place. And so 6 months ago, we began to work on this strategy. And then about 3 weeks ago, for the first time, we tested the ability to be able to do live stream worship. And in fact, we needed it this past Sunday. And we're so glad that we put that effort in. And that's what it means to be the church. Now, right now through Amazon, you might try to order things like toilet paper and they're not going to be able to get it to you. They have no stock of that at all. But more than likely, you can probably get a book. And if you're looking for a book that can encourage you at this time, I just met this author recently, Shane Wood. And Shane Wood came out with this book, Between Two Trees. And I had a great time getting to know him a little bit. And this book basically is kind of the story of the life that we live. Like we live between the trees. We know God's purpose. He created us in the garden. And with that tree, like life was good and it was meant to be good. And in Revelation, he's going to restore us again with a tree. But we live in between those two trees. We live in a world where God's will isn't always done, where bad things happen. And so we need to know how we can cope with that, how we can depend on God in that, and how we can depend on each other. In this book, he tells the story of a friend who has a brother, and his brother, unfortunately, was a gang member, and he ended up in prison. And when he was in prison, the rival gangs would often instigate things, and so to stay out of trouble, he would actually cause a fight, which would force him into isolation. And at one point, after isolation, he was there for 4 weeks straight. And a prison guard came to get him, and when he was handcuffing his hands behind his back, he began to weep. In fact, he was weeping uncontrollably. And the guard asked him, "What is it?" And he said, I haven't even touched anybody in so long, and I forgot what that felt like. Right now, we're going through a time of social distancing. We don't get to be around each other. We don't often get to touch our neighbors. We don't get to hug people that we love. It's a different time, but let's find ways to be the church. Let's find ways to be the church during this time and to honor God in all that we do, to bring the kind of touch that people need, but in a way that's responsible. And when we do finally come together again, let's celebrate because Jesus' work is being done even now in this time on this earth as it is in heaven.